Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the UWSA 2026 General Elections All Candidates Debate for the position of Vice President Student Advocacy. My name is Ghallia Hashem, and I have the honor of serving as your Chief Returning Officer for this election season. The purpose of today's debate is to give candidates the opportunity to present their platforms, explain their priorities, and engage with key issues facing students at the University of Windsor. A reminder to all candidates and attendees that this debate is being conducted in accordance with the UWSA elections policy. Civility, respect, and professionalism are expected at all times. This debate is being recorded and will be posted on UWSA platforms and will also be live streamed. Hello, everyone. Each candidate will now have 1 minute to deliver their opening statements. A 15-second warning will be issued before time expires. Once time is up, candidates must conclude their remarks. We will begin with opening statements. RJ, you may now begin.
Hello, my name is RJ D'Aguilar, and I'm running to be your next Vice President Student Advocacy. I'm running in this election because I deeply believe that there is a tremendous amount of room for improvement, not only on our campus, but in the education system in Ontario and Canada as a whole, for better accessibility, better equity, and better policy decisions that impact all students, and that is within divisions such as ethnic, belief-based, gender-based, orientation-based identities, but also things that affect all of us, like students experiencing disability, for example, and it's no secret that the funding models that impact all Ontario students are being revised in what I would consider harmful ways. So, collectively, I mean to organize the student voice here at this campus to address issues that matter to us in particular, but also bring our voice as University of Windsor students to the Ontario discussion around limiting the province's intersections.
Thank you so much, RJ. Isabella, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. I'm Isabella, and I'm running for VPSA for a reason that's very personal to me. I once was that student who struggled to find support, belonging, and guidance on campus, which is why I understand firsthand how important support systems are in order to thrive. My campaign is centered on 3 main principles: bringing that sense of community, belonging, so that no students feel isolated, ensuring access to resources and allowing them to be, making those student services enriched, and lastly, uplifting the student voice so that student concerns and interests are represented at every stage at the decision-making process. And that's why I'm running for VPSA.
Thank you, Isabella. Selena, you may begin.
Hi everyone, my name is Sabina Kava and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Student Advocacy. I'm a biological science student who served in residence, on the Senate, and across many campus organizations. And I've seen how governance decisions directly impact students, academically, financially, and personally. Students are navigating financial pressures, academic stress, and accessibility barriers, and too often don't know where their concerns can go or how they're addressed. And that's where advocacy matters. It shouldn't feel invisible, confusing, or inaccessible. Student voice should be structured in how concerns are received, tracked, and followed through. When in doubt, ask. That should be the culture of student advocacy. The VPSA is not a title, it's a service role. And my platform is built on 3 commitments: student voice, structure, and service. Advocacy is not about visibility for a person, but it's about visibility for student concerns, and I'm ready to serve in that role.
Raynell, you may now begin.
Hey Lancers, my name is Raynell George Cyrus and I'm running to be your next VPSA. As your VPSA, I want to serve you guys, you Lancers. I am one of you. I am able to relate to your issues that you face on campus. I am present. I am one among all of you. I go to class, I have the struggles, I have the exams, I have the stress, I have the affordability issues that everyone in this room is facing. And finally, I'm accountable. I'll make sure that I hold true to what I say on this campus and on this platform and everything I've stood through throughout my entire campaign. Thank you.
Ultimately, you may now begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Ultra Port and I'm running for VPSA because these 3 pillars that I'm going to explain are very important to me. Accessible advocacy, policy-driven representation, and equity and opportunities. With the given changes given from the provincial and federal government, now more than ever our structural changes on ground day to day from student services are more important. My campaign is about bringing those day-to-day changes on campus while students are dealing with other issues such as affordability, balancing tuition, and access to other financial aid barriers. I'll also be working towards providing more job opportunities on and off campus so students will have, in the meantime, ways to make means to provide for themselves as well as gaining employable experiences while their time here. I'm ready to listen to you and I'm ready to act on your behalf as your Vice President of Student Advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will now move on to the rapid fire round. This round consists of yes or no questions only. Candidates will indicate their responses using the papers they have. If you agree with the statement, please put up yes. And if you disagree with the statement, please put up no. Please be sure that your signs are facing the correct direction. No explanations or rebuttals are permitted during this portion of the debate. Question 1. Should VPSA publicly oppose provincial policies that harm students, even if doing so risks political backlash against UWSA? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. All the candidates have chosen yes. Question 2. Should putting students first ever come at the expense of UWSA's institutional comfort or reputation? And 3, 2, 1, put up your answers. 4 candidates have said yes. Alterly, Raynell, Isabella, and RJ, and 1 candidate has said no, Savina. On to question 3. Should VPSA support organizing protests or demonstrations when formal advocacy channels fail? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. 2 candidates have said no, Alterly and Raynell, and 3 candidates have said yes, Sabina, Isabella, and RJ. On to question 4. Should UWSA be willing to strain its relationship with the university if student rights are being harmed? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. We have all candidates saying yes. Question 5. Should VPSA prioritize marginalized student voices even when they conflict with the majority view? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. All candidates are saying yes. Question 6. Should VPSA encourage coordinated student action when quiet diplomacy produces no results? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers, and all candidates have said yes. Question 7. Should UWSA take strong public stances on controversial political issues when they directly impact students' access to education or rights? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. We have all candidates saying yes. Question 8. Should VPSA continue advocacy even if it risks funding, partnerships, or institutional access? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. 4 candidates have said yes, Raynell, Savina, Isabella, and RJ, and 1 candidate has said no, alternate. Question 9, should VPSA support escalating tactics when student appeals or rights are being systemically restricted? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. All candidates have said yes. Question 10. Should VPSA accept short-term organizational risk in order to achieve long-term gains for students? And 3, 2, 1, please put up your answers. We have 4 candidates saying yes, Alterly, Savina, Isabella, and RJ, and 1 candidate saying no, Raynell. We are now going to move on to the platform challenge portion of this debate. Each candidate will be given 3 questions designed to directly examine or challenge their platform. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Rebuttals are not permitted during this section. You will receive a 15-second warning when your time is almost over? Question 1 to RJ. You described past lobbying work with CFS and claimed concrete policy wins. What is one specific tactic you use in government-facing advocacy that you would replicate at UWSA, and why does it work?
Yes, thank you. A specific tactic that has been used by myself in concert with other student leaders and organizers is to work with the ascending union of unions of student organizing that exists within Canadian Federation of Students Ontario and the federal level in order to channel student voices into a shared goal, which results in research-based policy initiatives that can be lobbied at the Ontario and federal levels. So what that looks like, to put it a little bit more simply, is we derive evidence-based policy suggestions that are investment-oriented for the province, and we collectively go to Queen's Park and meet with individual MPPs who we describe these initiatives to, and we convince them that they are not only beneficial to us, but beneficial to the Ontario government. That has resulted in in 2016, my lobbying, along with additional student leaders from all over the country, achieved the Ontario Student Grant.
Thank you so much. Moving on to Isabella. Your work includes supporting students through academic misconduct processes and access to care barriers. What is one systemic problem you've seen repeatedly in these cases, and what policy change would you advocate for to fix it?
Thank you, Ghallia. Yes, my background in supporting students through academic misconduct, but also I've had a lot of experience with my student leadership and speaking to students directly about their nuanced experiences. And they have raised concerns about mental health support and also navigating the student life processes of like, how am I going to gain relevant experiences for my jobs and whatnot. What policy I would bring to address these issues would be to increase accessibility for services, especially mental health resources, like bringing workshops on campus and partnering with local organizations to receive that funding and making sure that services are robust.
Thank you. Savina. You've served in residence and on Senate, and you emphasize structured, informed advocacy. Can you give one example of a policy or decision you influenced through Senate or governance work, and what tactics made it effective?
One example of a policy that I've seen like within governance work is the exam policy that we had, and how it used to be like 3 exams within 24 hours, and now it's 3 exams within 2-3 calendar days. And with that just allows students to give their feedback that even if it's 3 hours difference that cut off from 24 hours, they're allowed to have an extra day with exams. And just that alone really took back the student feedback to make it more accessible to students, because an hour might make a difference on paper, but it's going to make a big difference in their life by having another day. And that's just one thing, a policy that changed by taking student feedback in the proper channels.
Reina, you emphasize collaboration and being approachable across campus communities. What is one specific change you've helped make in a student organization or team setting that improved outcomes for others?
So one thing that directly applies to this would be the student organization of the Biology Student Council. So this is a platform where it's with the administration of the University of Windsor's fault. So what I'm trying to get at is that there was an issue that arose between exams happening and how cheating was a huge issue between this. So I was actually an instrumental played a key role in developing the policies for laying out foundations for exam guidelines, especially within the biology exams, especially due to the fact being all multiple choice. We had to find ways that we would be able to mitigate and get through challenges of being able to reduce cheating within multiple choice exams.
Ultimately, your platform is strongly strategic, evidence-based, and persistent. What is one example of a campaign or advocacy effort you've run where you used research or messaging strategies to move decision makers?
Thank you for, There we go. Hello. Okay. I work a lot off campus with local nonprofits such as United Way, WFCU, and the McBride Youth United Association. With that work I often help develop policy proposals as well as assist with grant making to help them reach provincial and federal level assistance. One of the ways I have helped recently in the past year with the McBride Youth Association, we were able to develop do a citywide campaign and also develop funding to give to elementary students in order for them to have better access to education, to work towards getting transportation, work towards getting extra funding for works, food, and things like that. So, and most of that research came from not only pre-existing policies, but previous grants that were given before but weren't actually moved on. We were able to restructure those in order to get.
Thank you. Time is up. Appreciate it. Okay, round one has concluded. We are now moving on to round two. RJ, you emphasize a highly visible digital platform. How will you ensure VPSA doesn't become advocacy by broadcasting, where the loudest voices dominate? What would you do to represent students who don't feel safe being public?
Absolutely, great question. I firmly agree that there's an inherent bias to those people who are socially comfortable in broad reach programs like Instagram, for example, or other social media. However, there are a wide variety of different alternative ways that students can already access the UWSA. For example, through committees, through the board, through independent direct emailing to executives responsible for certain portfolios, as well as was already initiated by the outgoing VPSA in coordination with the rest of the UWSA team. Student equity collectives are making a much needed return to campus, and that is a channel that I would absolutely utilize to allow students to have a more intimate and less intimidating way to approach the UWSA about unmet needs on campus that matter to them. Thank you.
Isabella, your platform focuses on awareness campaigns, partnerships, and service visibility. Awareness helps, but it doesn't fix policies that harm students. What is one structural policy issue you would take on, even if it's unpopular or slow to change?
Thank you, Ghallia. One of the biggest parts of my campaign with regards to fixing policies that harm students, one of the biggest challenges I've seen is just reporting in general, feeling like they're unable to reach out to support systems and get that support that they need. So I would introduce a feedback forum where students are able to describe and raise their concerns in confidence. It would be anonymous, and I would review these submissions regularly to ensure that every student feels seen and supported.
Sabina, your platform emphasizes intake forms, tracking concerns, and clearer policy communication. What happens when students want action, not process, on something urgent? What is your escalation plan when tracking and following up isn't enough?
So when tracking and following up isn't enough and when you need something urgent, that's how all cases should be addressed, as something urgent. And using the tracking and following up process would just be a way, like a due process, that everything takes all the correct checkpoints that it goes through, and so it can be done urgently. And obviously you would take it on as a case-by-case matter of what needs to be done right at the moment and what could wait a few days or a few hours, but everything goes through the same processes to ensure like the proper checkpoints have been made. And so that's and all advocacy efforts have been made and all efforts have been made in general to assess the situation that's being taken. And that's why I think intake forms would be such a great idea, because it helps at a case-by-case and step-by-step basis.
Right now, Your platform mentions affordability, bursaries, and reducing hidden costs. What is the first concrete policy or institutional change you would push for, and what leverage would you use to make it happen if the university says no?
Okay, so the UWSA has access to a lot of funding that, since we're a nonprofit and a separate entity from the University of Windsor itself. So taking that to our advantage and making sure that we can leverage what the UWSA has to offer for us students. We gotta make sure that these funding isn't just like staying dormant and just like accumulating, but being able to be used at times of need and necessities. Like now's the time of need where with the new bill that just got passed, everyone's being affected. So being able to use these fundings for what is essential to us students is key. Money can be raised throughout in the future, but us students, we need to take action now and ensure that our needs are satisfied, so in the long run, that everyone else is also cared for.
Alterly, you emphasize credibility in professional communication. Some student issues require urgency and moral clarity, not just polished messaging. How would you respond when students demand immediate actions and your strategic process is too slow for the moment?
Thank you for your question, Ghallia. I would work internally with services that we already provide in school on a day-to-day in order to push those needs to the front line where they need to be addressed. Oftentimes, working the institutional route, going the hierarchy route, takes a lot of time. Students don't have that kind of time. I can tell you right now, they don't. But if we can utilize services that we already provide, if we can utilize money that's already in the process of being used, then we can move those issues to being addressed immediately.
Thank you. That concludes round 2. On to round 3. RJ, if a protest or direct action you support causes institutional backlash against UWSA, where do you draw the line between being an effective political warrior and risking harm to the organization's ability to deliver services to students?
Thank you. So when it comes to these issues, it's no secret that there are political issues that the students and the institution don't agree on. I think a lot of the time, these types of issues are not reactive, they're preventive. It comes from a place of setting up campaigning and advocacy and actions that are firmly grounded in defensible positions. Things that all students firmly believe in and are willing to speak up for, that they will come together around, so that if the institution just expresses disagreement, it's not a matter of a small collective of students who want to create a scene or get some sort of attention from the media. It's about all students having a pressing need that's unmet by the institution, and that gives you the strength to stand up against that institutional backlash, in my opinion. Thank you.
Isabella, a lot of your experience requires discretion and confidentiality, while VPSA can require public pressure and mobilization. How will you balance protecting individual students' privacy with leading bold public advocacy when needed?
Thank you, Ghallia. There definitely needs to be a balance between public advocacy and confidentiality. When it comes to specific student cases, many of them are very confidential and sensitive, and that is separate in itself. But when there is a pressing issue that many students are coming together and expressing their concerns, that requires open communication and taking a public stance. So that's where I would keep it balanced.
Sabina, if putting students first requires publicly challenging the university and it risks damaging UWSA's institutional relationships, would you do it? And how would you protect students from blowback while still pushing hard?
I think it's all about a balance of what the pros outweigh the cons, and if what you're doing in the backlash is going to outweigh the pros that could be gained from it. And you could keep pushing within the university and just see the harm that the students will face from it. And if something is going to harm students, then it's just as simple, like you don't do it. Students come first, their voice comes first, and what they're here for and what they stand for comes first. Obviously, trying to navigate other pathways is a great thing, but if it's cons are going to outweigh the pros for students, it's not worth doing at the end of the day.
Right now, VPSA sometimes has to confront administrators or even internal UWSA leadership. Tell us about a time you handled serious disagreements or conflict. What did you do when being collaborative wasn't enough?
Well, being handled in a serious disagreement, you face that in your day-to-day life. Specific example, even with like being on UWSA, you can tell that there are many motions that need to be passed. And when collaboration is enough, you gotta sometimes advocate and be the voice and show others how your opinion matters. You wanna be advocating for what matters to you the most. You just don't wanna stand up and take whatever they say. Collaboration is always useful, always beneficial, and should be #1 priority. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. So you need to stand up for yourself and make sure that what you want happens and does go through.
Alterly, if students are sharply divided on a major political issue that affects campus, would you take a stance anyway? If yes, how do you justify representing the whole student body? If no, how do you avoid neutrality becoming complicity?
I would say no. And I will explain why. As if elected as a representative of the UWSA, I believe that it's my job to overall represent what the institution and what the organization believes as a whole and put that on the forefront. And if I don't personally agree with those, I can take my personal avenue separately, but as a representative, I don't think it would be appropriate to advocate personal biases to the student bodies for any reason. I would deal with that neutrality by explaining that as a representative, it's my job to represent all of the intentions of the institution necessary, and again, not personal ones.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes our campaign-specific questions, and now we're moving on to global questions. I will ask 3 broad questions relevant to the role of the Vice President Student Advocacy. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Rebuttals are again not permitted during this portion of the debate. For this question, we will start with Isabella. When provincial legislation like Bill 33 harms students' rights or advocacy capacity, how should VPSA decide when to confront the government publicly versus working behind the scenes to protect students?
Thank you, Ghallia. Like I said before, taking that balanced approach is essential, but also specifically when it comes to raising public concerns and taking that government path, there must also be a stability with the student services that we have, and that those are the realities that students face. Despite what changes are being made at the provincial and federal level, students need that support every day. They need their peer support, their food pantry. Those services are very, very essential. And that is what, in my campaign, I believe needs to be stable. But also, on the other hand, I would work with student unions, CFS, in order to raise those concerns on a government level.
Sabina?
I think that the VPSA should decide when to confront the government publicly versus working behind the scenes to protect students, is when the students think that that's the best route in case scenario. As governance may evolve, student voices should also evolve. They shouldn't be shrinking. And so when students think that that's the best thing, you take feedback from the students. If they think that's the best thing to confront governance, and then you can do that. And if it's going to affect the students and what they want by collecting the information from students about what is going on, how this is affecting them personally, you can take that and you can go to governance. But while still keeping a balance of what students want, what governance wants, and keeping the students unaffected.
Rena?
So I think working behind the scenes is a continuous process. It never ends. Just because Bill 33 was passed doesn't mean that working behind the scenes ever stopped. It's going to continue, and it should be empowered even more after the bill passes. But what the question asks about when the VPSA decides to contact, publicly confront it, it comes down to what the students want. If the student needs are still not being met by behind the scenes works, we would do a poll, we would do a survey, we would reach out in person to see what the students want from the VPSA and what should be handled. VPSA obviously has the professional judgment to act upon it, but making sure and ensuring what the majority of the student wants is quintessential to making sure that we have a successful student body.
Alterly?
As VPSA, in this role, I believe both should be acted towards actively every day in this role. There are going to be times where working behind the scenes needs extra prioritization than necessarily going to Ottawa to advocate. However, there needs to be a healthy balance within this role for you to simultaneously do both and adjust your frequency of implementation given which needs are more pressing at the time.
RJ?
Thank you. So obviously, large-scale visible actions like protests, rallies, and lobbying at all levels of government are important and crucial and need to be ongoing processes in consultation with the student body. However, something that often people overlook in these spaces is the idea not just of confrontation, but of partnership building. And it goes back to what I was talking about in an earlier response about providing research-driven, evidence-based policy suggestions and recommendations for government that will allow them to both benefit and recuperate student experiences, but also do it in a way that is going to be considered fiscally responsible and meaningful to the general public. I believe that in building partnerships like that with government, rather than always only seeking to confront and force repeals, you'll have a greater degree of success, and we have in the past.
Thank you, candidates. On to question 2. For this question, Sabina will begin. With OSAP cuts increasing financial vulnerability for students, what does meaningful advocacy actually look like beyond statements? And how should VPSA be willing to escalate when students are being harmed?
Yeah, so students don't experience OSAP as a policy, right? They're experiencing it as stress. And so when the OSAP policy affects students, they're being stressed and it increases financial burdens and financial barriers that might have already been there before this new OSAP vulnerability has been there. And so by looking beyond just statements, you can collect actual real life scenarios, examples from students, how they're personally being affected, and you can take those to higher ups. And then you can escalate this when students are being harmed, and you can take the examples of when students are being harmed, look at the broader thing, and there's probably going to be patterns of when students are being harmed and how they're being harmed. And if there's multiple students experiencing these things, you can bring this up, bring this forward, and make it more known other than just statements.
Rena?
So touching back on what I said, UWSA has to use the funding at times at needs like this. The OSAP cut is an unfortunate bill that got passed and was not seen. What happened is completely unfortunate, but when it comes to what needs to be done, as VPSA, we need to escalate this matter to the higher ups, and lobbying would be a huge part of that. But at the same time, you ought to focus on the local level, as that's what the VPSA solely focuses on, what I believe. Us students, and try to see how you as a VPSA and with the UWSA, how you can directly impact and help out the students in this adversity.
Well, as someone who receives OSAP funding, this is a personal issue for me, and that's why this is something I would be actively working towards if elected as VPSA. What meaningful advocacy would look like for me in this role on the day-to-day is working with local organizations to be able to increase off-campus job opportunities in order for students to deal with those financial burdens in the meantime and sustain themselves. while working on that, working internally with university administration and UWSA leadership to find avenues that we can work with internally to help students when they're being harmed. Ultimately, working on three levels, locally, here, and on the government level to actively get change on our campus and campuses across the province.
RJ?
Yeah, thank you. In agreement with other candidates, I do strongly believe there is a two-level approach. The local University of Windsor environment needs to be considered when looking at ways to effectively advocate for students affected by the OSAP provisions. Some examples of how that looks are finding alternative funding methods in order to provide services in the event of funding reductions or modifications that were unexpected, as well as an example of an initiative the outgoing UWSA board has taken is to increase the scholarship funding available to the student body. This is a way that we can locally counterweight the effects of these kinds of legislation, but also, and I can't stress this enough, the most effective way to advocate against these sorts of policy changes are to organize the student voice locally, provincially, and federally to put pressure on the governments, and in both ways, as I've already mentioned, both confrontationally if necessary, but also in building partnerships to create mutually beneficial paths forward.
Isabella?
Yes, total agreement with the rest of the candidates. I do believe that one of the most important things is to ensure that the services are supporting the students, because OSAP cuts, they are scary. The students have come to me telling me how difficult it is to afford grocery, their housing, which is why our services that we already do have ensure that these students are supported in those times of needs. For example, like the food pantry, providing those groceries, even the Student Respect and Empowerment Office informing the students about their rights is so important to allowing students to thrive.
And on to our last question. Right now, you will begin. When putting students first risks UWSA's relationships, funding, or institutional access, how should VPSA decide what risks are worth taking and where the line is?
So I believe making sure that we maintain relationships with the university, with the provincial government, with the federal government, they're all essential. That's what allows the UWSA to be the UWSA and to be able to put students first. Obviously, we're gonna want you guys as a priority, but ensuring that we don't sever these relationships between whether it be sponsors, companies, the government is key to making sure that UWSA runs smoothly and is fair and equitable process throughout this entire thing. And where the line is, well, it varies case to case. There is no set line. It is something that is going to move depending and based on what and who it's affecting. But bottom line, where I draw is that I want to put each and every one of you first before my needs and what is going to be best and representation for you.
Time is up. Alternate.
When or if these relationships or avenues are put at risk because of our, I would say, loyalty to students, I think it's important to remind both the partnerships that we have relationships with, as well as the students, where our intentions lie in order to continue to build a better bridge. I don't think at any point in time it would be necessary to sever the UWSA's ties or relationships with funding or institutional access, because those two things are factors that directly impact how we can help students. So, but where my line would be anything that is objectively and clearly discriminatory against students or puts them, again, objectively in disharm.
RJ?
Yes, as I've discussed a little bit already, for me, this question is answered by selecting defensible positions in the first place. It's preventive rather than reactive. if you take into account the needs of students, assess the saturation of the issue's importance to all students, regardless of divisions within the student body, and find positions for the UWSA to take that are as close to universal among the student body as possible, then when any backlash or any institutional divergence or any sort of government policy difference from your position occurs, you'll be able to stand strong in the values that you've selected, because you know you have the entire student body behind you, and you know that that voice is what gives you your mandate. If you do that in the first place, I think you won't find many places where you need to give up on a position or harm your relationships.
Isabella?
I think that in no means necessary, putting students first should risk the partnerships that we have with the institution and any organization, because partnerships are what keeps us going, keeps us strong, and to risk that wouldn't be right by the students, because one of the most important parts of supporting students is to ensure that they have funding and they have those resources which come from our partnerships. So yeah, I would draw the line by obviously, like what was said earlier, if anything was completely harmful, that does draw the line, but we need to balance the importance of our partnerships.
Sabina?
Student advocacy is built on relationships, funding, institutional access, and just hearing voices from the students. And where you would draw the line is when students are going to be more affected and on the long run and after the risk has been taken. You don't want to take a risk that's going to affect students more when you're trying to fix the problems in the first place. And so just by drawing the line where students are going to be affected more than they are in the first place, and the risk is worth taking when all students agree, but still within a controlled manner, and so that there's no detrimental harm to the institution as a whole.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes our global questions segment. We are now going to take a 15-minute break. During this time, you'll notice that on the screen there is a QR code. Please scan the QR code and ask your questions. I'm going to be monitoring the questions and selecting some to ask the candidates. But before we get to the audience Q&A, we're going to have an open debate section where you all get to ask questions of your fellow candidates. So take the 15 minutes, prep some time, and then prep some questions, not time. Prep some questions for one another, and then we'll come back. So we're going to come back at 3:30. Thank you all.
That's why I was asking. Because it said no longer than 2 feet on either side.
This is fine. This is the other.
Because I think that's as big as it would be.
But they're gonna go to work.
No, I appreciate
Like,
Somerset?
so they both work right there.
Yeah.
It's like, for
My
Ryan,
dad's on
like,
Big
I was
Beaver.
like received things. So one of them kind of looks like is like this, because I ordered it. And then the other one is more like a formal. This one I know is fine. It just says everything. Like my dad paid for it because I backed up into a car, so I don't know. So my dad paid for it, so that's why it's a joke. But that's my dad. But you can make it to me and then it can transfer to me. So and then this is all I had for the Michaels. Is that okay? Because I just meant like, because it doesn't like show like a full, you know what I mean? Like, and then obviously the picture will be received. So yeah, I talked to them today. So I'm like, oh wait, they should get it.
Yeah.
And then I go, we're gonna be under $55 because I was doing my budget. $59. I have $59.
Are you using the Excel sheet?
Well, I didn't know. Okay, because I didn't know if I was supposed to make a copy of it.
You download it.
I downloaded it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can use the download version.
Okay. I've just been doing the mental math.
You're so cute. You know what
Okay. I didn't know because you sent it to us. It was view only, and then I go, wait, make a copy. But like I didn't know what you wanted us to do. We had to send everything, and then you were gonna put it into it. I didn't know. So then I was just doing my mental math. I was just going.
Doing so much extra work.
Well, I was going. Okay, so if 300 minus my $240 in
That much
total,
left.
then I have this much left. Exactly. So I go in my email, even though I talked to you, I talked earlier about doing that. It needs to be under $55 with tax included. We did say that price, so
Yeah.
because she said it wouldn't be that, but I would just make sure. I just want to make sure because I don't want to go wrong.
Yeah.
And then I attached it as a PDF and the PNG. Thank you. I was just making sure because I was like,
I know it's stressful.
it's stressful for me because like I'm doing it all by myself, and like it's just because I want like I mentioned. What showed me was none of you answered. Again, none of you answered the question. The third time's the charm. Did we answer it the third time?
You did. You did the third time.
The third time's the charm. Okay. Because like in my head I'm like, that's not proper. Hold up. My favorite part though for me was I'm just like I'm done with it. Like I'm done. I'm not. It's not. You're writing on a section. No, he just says
So that's the most difficult. You want me to come there? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so hard to find because if I go to a theater,
Maybe that's why.
here's the thing. So when I talk about I said what is this one done?
Was he studying one? I don't know.
He's buying me because I love them, so and I can match them in the office, so I'm gonna start wearing them.
If I tell you to repost my stuff, you're not. You know what I'm saying?
So expressing personal support for him.
Yeah. Hey. That's the way I've been defining it.
I don't understand. I wasn't. You are going up.
A student who wants to support a campaign is not being directed by the candidate to do so. Campaign team members are directed by candidates.
Here's the concept. They're making an entire discussion of you. So I have directors, employees, and executives who are not candidates shall remain neutral and shall not participate in campaign activities. With the definition of campaign activities, that should also include being a supporter, being anything.
So you're not supporting.
No.
I
think it's fair. You're representing. You're representing.
You're a student.
Anything.
Non-profit action can't allow
they're this organization's business.
Yeah, so outside there's a provision unless otherwise declared by the GM. Like the GM can
Even the board?
I don't think the board should, because it's caused too many problems to the board meeting. It's gonna cause too many.
I just, yeah, I also think, again, as board members, they are a huge force for an election period because they're known as productive, they're known as
Right, but then you just get your
where
friends to
people
be one of the board.
where people would go to
People
them
will
and
just go
say,
and kind of
hey,
drink
what
that.
do you
Yeah, but look at this. On the board, not the board. I think that you should not associate with the board. I don't want to go around.
Okay, how about it's at the discretion of the CEO? No, hear me out. At the discretion of the CEO, the consultation with the GM, based on what the composition is in that in
But
any
that
given
causes
year.
too much like freedom.
I'm telling you this based on conversations I've had with your legal team. Your legal team is same as Susan. Same legal team.
That makes no sense.
The fact that the staff gets paid on a basis, that's why you're the so their rights are made clear. You can't take it away. But it makes sense.
They could elect
Okay, so directors will have, okay, so thank you for serving. Like if you are not. Then you fall under this test, then you should not be part of it.
I don't know if you have to say that you have to allow people to say this.
Yeah, I'm not doing
Did you warm up your coffee? It's still warm. Very cold, yeah.
Anyway, they have been those board is gonna, so I'm gonna pick board on that's one is good. But I'm saying right now the language is gonna be employees and executives who are non-candidates shall remain neutral and shall not participate in taking activities or use or attempt to use their position or organization. But that's what's confusing. It was there. I just was not happy. And then by saying you can't participate in the activities. No, exactly. But you being a campaign team member is you being a campaign activity. There's the one thing. So I'm saying, but this is now you're going to if you're not a campaign team member, but then how are you going to be a campaign team member? You're supposed to be neutral. This is supposed to be first session. But I don't want to put you in the back. I know, but if we're uniform here, it just reduces. I'm not trying to go back because this is just one. Imagine 51 pages. And this is what I mean with most changes. Like all of it.
What's up, Lancers?
No,
we're here. Oh, no, we're at
Just
oh.
go with what you believe. Right? I there has to be this thing.
Put your laptop down.
like, what is this girl? Like, why is she scared? I don't know.
2-minute warning for our candidates who will be beginning in 2 minutes.
We got lots still.
I think it's still 4.
It's the looping. It's the looping around.
As long as it's an option.
It is 3:30. Candidates, please return to the stage. We are going to begin.
Christina. Or do you have to do anything right now? Maybe you don't.
Thank you all. That ends our intermission. We are now going to go into the open debate section of this debate. In this portion of the debate, candidates may pose questions to one another through the moderator. Each candidate may exercise one rebuttal per question. To request a rebuttal, please raise your hand immediately after a statement you wish to challenge. Once recognized, the main speaker's time will be paused and the rebutting candidate will have up to 30 seconds to respond. The original speaker will then have up to 30 seconds to reply, and then their original time will begin once again. Rebuttals must remain respectful and directed through the moderator. All timing and recognition decisions are final. Everyone has 1 minute to respond to questions. If you would like to pose a question to another candidate, please raise your hand now. Okay, alternate.
This question is for each candidate. What specific policy changes would you provide internally if elected? This includes structural changes to existing services.
We'll start with Rena.
I believe we could begin with ensuring that there is proper training that is provided to all the coordinators that are coming into office. Making sure and ensuring that every single one person that is working with the UWSA, supporting the UWSA, volunteering, Blue and Gold Pack, anyone that is acting as the face of the UWSA or representing it should be given full training and adding like a policy that emphasizes and making sure that everyone is fully addressed, there's no discrimination, is going to be essential and key to making sure that the UWSA is successful.
I think one policy that could be added to the UWSA is just VPSA specifically is how complaints are taken in and addressed, having an open intake form so no one's getting the runaround of go here, and just have one place where students know that they can go and that's where they can address their concerns or even comments or questions. Like I said, the VPSA should be about asking and not wondering.
With the feedback forms that I proposed earlier, students will be able to raise their concerns and constantly provide their feedback on how the services are treating them, if they feel satisfied, supported with them, and this ensures that these services are tailored to the students and constantly being reviewed. But also I would introduce certain informative programming to ensure that students know what services are available to them, introducing workshops where people can gain experiences, see what organizations are available to them, and yeah.
An internal organizational policy that I would want to initiate, or rather reinitiate, with the UWSA as the student advocate, would be to take advantage of our access to services, skills training, and collective action available to the Canadian Federation of Students. As it stands, we are currently members of the Federation, both at the Ontario and federal level, and there are a lot of services and skills training opportunities and collective actions that are available to us that only require us to take advantage of those. In my knowledge, the past couple of years, due to a variety of reasons involving the institution, weathering the storm that everyone endured through COVID, our access of these services and skills building opportunities have lapsed. I would reinitialize that utilization, which would allow us to send student delegations to skill building workshops, to training symposiums, and to collective action across Ontario and Canada to impact policy.
Any other questions? You want to post your hands, Isabella?
So this question is specifically for RJ. I know you are very, very involved on campus and like to pride yourself with being an advocate in your everyday. But one of the biggest things in the VPSA role is dealing with student cases, specific student cases. So in the instance that, for example, a very vulnerable person is coming to you with a concern, for example, a young woman who's coming out of high school who has been assaulted and coming to you for support, how are you going to ensure that that student feels represented by you?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. In fact, and I'll be candid, I am a survivor myself, so I understand the emotional, psychological, and social ramifications of having to deal with traumatic events of that nature. Is from that place that I would be able to at least act as a good starting position for the individual to get the help they need. But that being said, I don't claim to be a one-stop solution for everyone's individual unique needs, and where that goes from there, it involves the context of the individual's circumstances and my ability to access and refer the individual to other services that exist on campus, perhaps to someone who is more relatable to them, perhaps to someone who is a more professional and experience-based, such as student wellness or student counseling, or even, depending on the context, maybe the peer support center if it isn't requiring professional care. Recognizing the needs of the individual and then not relying on only myself to meet those needs is how I would go about it.
Alterly?
This is another question for each candidate. As you know, the VPSA is responsible for conducting the administration of and also helping the student center coordinators administrate their jobs. And a lot of that requires a depth understanding of intersectionality. So I just wanted to ask you guys, what does that mean to you, and how would you implement your meaning of that word in your role?
Alright, to answer that question, I believe that there's a lot of support centers within the UWSA that are key and instrumental in supporting the student body and making sure they work together and ensuring that certain groups certain student bodies that need extra support in times of adversity is key to this. Not one size fits all is the best answer for this. Not all student groups are going to have the same access to the funding, same resources, so making sure we're able to provide these resources based on needs and where there's more students that are affected by that certain center is going to be essential. So coming back to that, the intersectionality, it ties into making sure that it's need-based rather than one size fits all.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Raynell said. The students' service centers are a really great place for students to go, different opportunities and different resources for them to use. And just by being the VPSA and encouraging these student support centers and how that there's different centers that are going to be fit for different students, and just going through that and receiving feedback about the service centers. If something is not working or there's something that needs to happen in order for a different demographic to be addressed, you just address it and keep moving and keep improving that way.
Excellent question, Arlie. I feel like intersectionality is one of the most important parts to my campaign. I serve as the vice president of Mental Health Association and also the co-president of Filipino Student Association. And one of the biggest things I bring to that is the cultural celebration. Cultural celebration, and I would bring that into the VPSA role, especially with the services, because they are designed to ensure that the students feel like they have a place to that they belong and that they can connect and network. One of the things that a student has raised their concern with me is diversifying the student coordinators so that they feel represented when they're in there.
It is a great question, ultimately. For me, from my perspective, intersectionality is about recognizing the different ways that our individual identities coalesce to form different barriers to access and barriers to equity. The way that it looks implementing positive change for that on our campus, so we are privileged to have a good diversity of student services that already exist, but within those, there are obviously, through intersections, different ways that there may be room for the VPSA to act as a mediator among student leadership, where students that are differing within an identity sphere and can't resolve that might need help with negotiations or mediation. That's one way that an SA can do that. As well, it's looking at where are those intersections on our campus? Through meaningful interaction with the student body to find where there are underrepresented intersections of identity and looking for, and meaningfully looking for ways to address those through policy.
Lucky for us, that actually concludes our open debate section, and we're going to move on to our audience questions section. So thank you all to everyone who filled in the form. I have a couple of questions for you all. Some are directed towards one candidate, some are directed towards multiple, and some are directed towards all. We're going to start with a question for RJ and Raynell. How will you ensure marginalized student voices aren't only consulted symbolically, but actually shape final decisions?
Can I get that question again, please?
How will you ensure marginalized student voices aren't only consulted symbolically, but actually shape final decisions?
So, through my life, I've actually faced systemic racism throughout it. So, as a first person that has experienced this, I know how it feels to be in that shoe. I know the support and how you are feeling in that time. So, if I get elected as your VPSA, I make sure that I am going through the steps and processes that I didn't have, and make sure those opportunities are available and accessible to you as students. So that can include having non-judgmental spaces, open link forums, and having the option to choose, like not just being able to just come up to me, but having like coordinators or assistants within my office that they might feel more comfortable talking to rather than just directly coming up to me. But my doors will always be open and we'll be able to address this.
Yeah, to me it is of paramount importance, and this has to do with intersectionality, and this has to do with equity, how marginalized students' needs are heard and how action is taken to gain policy results that will meaningfully help them. So I look at it in two ways: how you start and how you finish when it comes to my ability to get that goal. You start by using the methods that I described in an earlier response about committee opportunities for students to come forward, email opportunities, equity collective opportunities for students to come forward and express their concerns in intimate ways that are not necessarily intimidating or overexposed. And then when you have in your hands, or when I have in my hands, those needs and unmet needs, I can leverage my privilege, which I recognize. It starts from a place of recognizing one's own privilege. I can leverage that privilege to speak truth to power and to confront institutions and get the results that we need without having to fear any sort of systemic backlash in the same way that those students might.
Our next question goes to Alterly and Isabella. What relationships have you already built with administrators that will make you effective on day one?
To start off, I have done work with the Public Affairs Office under Dr. Shatina Jones in helping her coordinate events, spread awareness of what she does as well. I've worked with multiple student organizations, specifically under event administration, where I specialize in terms of curating events and things of that order. But most of my work has been locally with nonprofits and working with them directly.
I have experience with student leadership in student groups, specifically, like I mentioned, Filipino Student Association, Mental Health Association. I'm also serving as an executive on the Psychology Student Association. So these allow me to have connections with faculty, staff. I'm also in a research assistant position where I'm examining PCOS and its effects on women, and all of those inform my my platform and how I will lead as the VPSA.
Our next question goes to Raynell. What is the importance of EDID, equity, diversity, inclusion, and decolonization to you? How would you ensure supporting all of our service centers and marginalized voices, specifically the 2S LGBTQIA+ students?
So hitting on that topic, like I said, equity is a huge part. Everyone needs to be represented, not just one group, not just a certain race, not just a certain ethnic background, not a certain religion, not a certain gender, nothing like that. Every one of you at the university matters. Every single one has the same equal right and should have the same equal opportunity and access to advocacy and everything and resources all across the university. For that, I'll make sure that I keep an open mind and keep my doors open, like I had previously mentioned. I will ensure that no one feels vulnerable or intimidated by coming into my office, and that is a promise that I am making to you.
On that note, transitions very well into our next question for all candidates. What is one promise you are making tonight that you are willing to be publicly held accountable for? We can start with Alterly.
One promise that I am ready to be publicly held accountable for is creating a student economic and policy research committee This is a policy form that I want to work with internally with the school on, and making this committee count towards either a co-op credit or a course credit, so students can work within the school on a real research basis and help create policies to affect the student affordability crisis internally.
So a promise that I make to every University of Windsor student here is that my doors will always be open. You guys will never feel left out. Every single one of you are gonna have equal and same access to me as my family and anyone else. I am gonna put students first, and that is the commitment that I am making to all of you here.
One promise that I can make to students is also an open door policy and having weekly office hours where people can drop in if they have a question. Don't want to make a formal meeting, you can drop in, have a question, and I'll always be reachable. With open door policy, you shouldn't be intimidated to come and talk to me. I'm one of you, I'm a student, I'm approachable, and I want that to be portrayed with the open door policy and always being reachable.
One promise I want to make today as a future VPSA would be that students will always feel safe, seen, and supported on our campus. Whether that's providing experiences, volunteering experiences, enriching those student services that we do have, and also being there to listen and to uplift your voice. That is one thing I will intend to accomplish this as VPSA.
If you elect me your Vice President of Student Advocacy, I can tell you right now, the UWSA will exhaust every available option, whether that is organizing, rallies, protests, lobbying, every manner of option available to us to fight back against the Ontario government's revisions to the OSAP structure and the harmful effects of Bill C-33 on voluntary student fees on campuses. We will work tirelessly to ensure that our voice at the local level, Windsor, is added to the collective Ontario and Canadian voice of students right now opposing the dismantling of the education system by the government for fiscal reasons. We will spare no expense, we will leave no action off the table, because this is an issue that affects almost every single student. There's no division of identity or belief here. This is something that harms almost all of us. Even the staff, faculty, everyone here at university and post-secondary campuses all over the country is affected by this.
And that concludes our audience Q&A. We're now going to move on to our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute to summarize their message and encourage students to participation in the elections. Rebuttals are not permitted during closing statements. RJ, you may begin.
Thank you very much. As I have endeavored to outline here today, my approach to advocacy, if elected, involves two strokes. One, involving the local issues that University of Windsor students acutely experience, involving accessibility, equity, access to resources, and policy here with regard to professors, administration, zero-based budgeting, and that sort of thing. The other stroke is, of course, reaching above to the Ontario and Canadian levels to ensure that policy decisions that are taken are reflective of the needs of students, and ones that have already been taken that harm students are repealed or resisted. So in those two ways, I will be the best advocate for students on this campus, should you elect me your Vice President of Student Advocacy on March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
My commitment to student advocacy comes from such a personal space. I volunteered at the Women's Center and SREO in my second year, and I realized how important it was to have a space where you feel like you can connect and are guided through the processes, the difficult processes that we have to go through as students. And which is why it's very important to me to make sure that you feel that you belong and that you're seen and that your voices are heard. Also, that your voices are represented at decision-making processes. And that's what I intend to bring as the future VPSA. And please vote March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Advocacy isn't about who can speak loudest in a debate. It's about someone who can continually listen, understand systems, and ensure student voices are integrated into decision making. Students shouldn't have to wonder where to go or where their concerns went. They shouldn't have to decode any language or feel alone when navigating pressures on campus. When in doubt, ask. The VPSA isn't a spotlight role, it's a service role. And I would be honored to earn your vote on March 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Student advocacy is not just a title. It's about true representation and making sure your voice is heard. Vote me, Raynell George Cyrus, for VPSA, and I will make sure all your concerns are heard and addressed. My doors will be open, and I will commit my term as VPSA and going into the future to serve you Lancers for the best and for the better future.
If elected as VPSA, I can promise you now I will dedicate every fiber of my being to making sure that students not only are aware of the changes that are being made for them, but are seeing it daily on campus. Not only will I be working with local government partnerships and also local businesses, but I'll actively be working internally with administrators here, groups, and board members to work on what we can provide students on the day-to-day. I want to be able to help students guide through this difficult time by providing you with solutions that you can see. So vote, I will not only vote for me, but it's also important that you guys vote for a candidate that you truly believe represents your best interests. So we will see you March 2nd to March 4th.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for your professionalism and your engagement this afternoon. And thank you to everyone in attendance. A reminder to all students, in case you missed it, voting will be happening March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. That's the official voting period. Candidate profiles and voting information are available on the UWSA elections website. Again, your voice matters. Your vote is how you shape the future of student leadership at the University of Windsor. And with that, we conclude the Vice President Student Advocacy 2026 business.